Well, everybody, welcome back to the Trig Podcast for Joy and GOZO TV on this beautiful Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to this episode. Talking today about how and what can you do to survive the last few weeks here of 2020 as things seem to be getting worse, not better. And yet there is this promise of a vaccine or of perhaps a better start to 2021. So I want to give you a few tips on how to thrive and maybe just survive these next few weeks. Before I get into that, I want to just tell you about two brand new courses that I've put together. One is how to podcast and live stream to succeed in your own second income stream. If you've ever wanted to start a podcast to influence others, to start a side hustle, to impact the world, and you would like to know the how-tos of podcasting and live streaming, I have put together a free webinar. You can just go to davidTrig.com/podcast, and you can then learn all about it. It's coming up in about a week or so, December 15th. And then second, I've put together a course called How to Thrive in 2021. And this is a course that includes 5 different videos with a 6th bonus video. Anything from faith and the journey of faith that we're all going through. Second is of positive mindset. Third is the Enneagram and personality types. Fourth is understanding your family of origin. Fifth is understanding demonic influences. And sixth is succeeding and thriving in life, in your career especially. So these 5 videos and the 6th bonus are available to you at davidTrig.com/Thrive 2021. Thrive 2021. And I hope that you can take advantage of that as we wrap up this year and look forward to a better 2021. So what am I doing to thrive? Well, I think that this year has been a combination of days when I feel amazing and I'm ready to conquer the world and start 5 new businesses and preach the best message of my life. And then other days when I don't want to get out of bed and when I feel overwhelmed by fear, or when my heart palpitations and my anxiety panic attacks want to get the best of me. And I think that is the experience. I think what matters most, though, is how you think about your experience, what you tell yourself about your circumstances or about what you're feeling. And something that I have learned through therapy and my own inner work is to accept myself and to not judge myself. There are so many things that want to judge us when we are having a human experience, from religion to family to our own conscience. And I've faced all those things as well. But when I find peace is when I accept myself. And when I realize that, especially the Psalms describe mostly David, a man of God, mostly in crisis. And that through that crisis, through his crying out to God, he's able to find the presence of God, find his strength. I also look a lot at Jesus' own life, especially when he's in Gethsemane or on the cross, when he is crying out to his Father, feeling isolated and abandoned. And that's how this year has felt for many of us, is an abandonment, whether it's by God or by peace or traditions, your stability, income. There's always something and someone that makes us feel abandoned, especially if you, like me, have dealt with childhood abandonment issues. And so acceptance has been very important. I think there's also have been a few stories of the Bible that have helped me, that have given me, I guess, maybe a path or a map forward. One of them is Noah's Ark. More than a child story or a childish story or a Sunday school story, I find Noah's Ark to be very, very honest. You have a man of God or a woman of God, let's say, Noah in this case, who is doing his best to get people through this horrible storm, through this flood, through this season of death. We're talking about thousands of people, we don't know, dying because of this flood. His friends, his family. Inside the ark, he has one of the biggest crises ever. He's in this ark for 40 days. He doesn't know it'll be 40 days. For all he knew, it could have been 400 days or 4 years. His family's in there. He's got all kinds of animals in there. And chaos is ensuing. And he's a man of God. He believes God has given him a promise of a new earth and a new land, a new beginning. But he has no clue when, where, how will this end. Sounds familiar, right? And so what does he do? At the end of these 40 days, when the rain begins to subside, he sends out a dove, a raven. There's a couple of birds that he lets out to see if the time is right. And this is all he can do. He can't stop the rain. He can't just open the door and let people out. What if they drown? What if it isn't there? What if there's no sunlight? What if there are no crops? What if they die? What if there is no rainbow? And so he can't rush God. He can't rush this flood. He can't rush this natural disaster, this virus per se. He can't rush it. He has to trust. He has to wait. But he does do something, and that is that he surrenders. He opens the door to or a window of his ark, and he lets out this dove, and then he waits. The first time, the dove comes back. There's nowhere to land. Second time, 7 days later, the dove again comes back. There's nowhere to build a nest. I can only imagine every week, everyone inside that ark feeling worse and worse, more and more restless, probably mad. I'm sure people were getting sick in there. Animals, I'm sure they were also going through all kinds of crazy. I mean, it must have been chaotic. Talk about a lockdown. And all he could do was to open that window and wait to see. Finally, the third time, I think that's when the raven is let out, and the raven finds a place to land and to build a nest. And so Noah knew that it was time, that the end of this disaster, of this nightmare was coming to an end. And so they finally land. Noah's Ark there, it finally lands there on that mount, a famous mount, Ararat, there in Iraq. And they come out, and the sunlight is there, and the rainbow appears, and God's voice appears, promising to never do this again. And it says there that Abraham worshiped God. He built a sacrifice, and they rejoiced, and they were able to populate the earth once again and live happy lives. And I learned a lot from that story, because right now, what can we do exactly to stop this disease from spreading? The other day I had a friend, pretty mad, asking for prayer. Really, it was more almost like a punishment prayer for all the people that are not wearing masks, that aren't following the guidelines. And of course, I understand her frustration. What can we do? We can't stop people from doing what we want them to do or what we think they should do. But what we can do is to surrender something, is to surrender that control that we long for, is to put that we are holding on to the most out to God. out into the air, into the universe, as some would say, of the presence of God. Maybe today you need to surrender the results of the election. Perhaps you're still hanging on to that. I wonder if God wants you to open the window of your heart and let the dove out of your heart, but trust God. I wonder if it's the health of your loved ones. I wonder if it's fear. What is the dove, the raven, that you need to surrender to God? For me, it's always fear. It's always success. And to be, as an Enneagram 3, Wing 4, I'm always looking to want to be admired, to want to succeed, to want others to know that I'm here to help. And I always have to surrender that apostolic gift, and also the shadow part of it. And to wait on the Lord, for Him to give me the desires of His heart and the desires of my heart, of course, and to know that He has a plan. Now, the other story that I often think about is David and Goliath, another childhood Sunday school story. I think of that story from the perspective of preparedness. See, you are more ready than you think. You are more prepared than you think to face the giants of 2020 or of your life. You are more ready than you realize because of God and His strength in you. So David, of course, we know he comes to the Philistine line, to that frontier, to that place where there's the battle going on between the people of God, Israel, and Goliath, their arch enemy, this 8-foot man who's ready to destroy them, who's mocking the God of Israel. And so young David, he comes, and the king says, well, you can't just go out there just wearing that. You have to put on my helmet and my shield, and you have to put on my belt and all of these tools that I have used. And David says, no, this is not for me. And so David, as you know, he comes and he picks up these 6 stones and he throws one and hits Goliath right between the eyes, and Goliath is defeated. David takes Goliath's own sword and cuts his head off and proclaims victory, and the God of Israel is vindicated, and God gives them the victory, and the Philistines run, and the people of God are victorious. Now, you think of all that and you say, wow, God was with him, and he was wise enough to not trust in these other, in Saul's tools and helmet, and he trusted God and these 6 stones and all that. But see, David was prepared even before that moment. He was prepared by God when he was even a younger boy, when it says that he killed the lion and the bear. David was more ready than he even realized. Greatness was already in him. That power and that authority, that courage was already in him because God had already prepared him by killing the lion and the bear. I can only imagine the kind of courage that it took for a young 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy to kill a lion. Have you ever been followed, chased by a lion or by a bear? I have, by a bear, but it's no joke. My point is that David was more ready than he realized because God had already been doing a great work in his life, preparing him to be the man that defeated Goliath. And so, but the second part of that story is David, even though he was more ready than he realized, he still had to take that step of faith. He still had to say no to the things of Saul, to the shield and the tools, let's say, of this earth. And he had to say yes to these 6 stones and to trusting God and to throwing that stone at Goliath's head. He still had to act. It wasn't enough just to be ready. That readiness showed up in that moment of truth when he threw that stone through that slingshot and he killed Goliath. And that's exactly how faith works, is we have to First, be prepared and realize that we are more ready than we realize. To remember all the times in 2020 and 19 and 2018 where God has been preparing you for this moment of truth, for your moment of truth. And then second, though, you have to act. You have to actually step out in faith. We walk by faith, right? Not by sight. And so whatever Goliath is in front of you, a major decision at work, maybe a celebration with your partner, with your husband or wife, it could be something dealing with a health concern or a financial decision that you have to make. Whatever the Goliath and the giant that is in front of you, you are already prepared. As God told Esther or Mordecai told Esther, for such a time as this has God put you here, Esther. But we have to act. What is the next step that you have to take in order to trust God, to utilize the tools of faith and power and strength that are already in you? We know that, we have to pick up the shield of faith. Use your faith. Use the faith that has been built up in you. Use it now. This is the time, my dear friends, for you to use the full armor of God, to walk in boldness in the power of the Holy Spirit, not by might, not by power, but by His Spirit, says the Lord. That is how you will have an amazing 2020, these last few days here, weeks of December, and an amazing start to 2021. So that when the vaccine comes or whatever is going to give you that sense of peace, you will have what it takes. You already have what it takes. So that, and then when those things come, you will be able to move into 2021 in power, without shame, without fear, without a feeling of isolation or feeling unworthy of God's love. You are worthy. You are already empowered by God. You are already a child of God, a daughter of the Most High. Think of all the ways, as I call it in my course, the ACL experience. A stands for adventure, C stands for grace in crisis, and L stands for love. Think about all the moments, all the crises in these last even just few months where God showed you His grace. Now, what is grace? Grace is God reaching down to that pit and rescuing you from death, rescuing you from that pit of hell. Think of those moments. Think of your own bear experiences and lion. What have been the lions that God has given you victory over? What have been the bears in your life? Has it been the loss of a loved one? Was it fear, unemployment, disease? How many scares has God brought you through just even these last few months? How about last year? How about 5 years ago? God has prepared you. You are more ready than you realize. But then second, what is that step of faith that you have to take? And what are you waiting for exactly? More knowledge, more faith, more power, more worship, more church? You are ready. You have enough. This today is your challenge and your permission to step out in faith, to start that new business, to sign up for that course, to learn a new skill, to write that song, to become that pastor that calling that you've been running away from, to marry the man of your dreams, to leave that relationship that is not for you, to go get back on the horse, get back on the race, and to trust God once again for your career or your education. Take that next step. You are more ready than you realize. My prayer for you today is that you will know that God is with you, not against you, and that His Spirit and His grace is with you every step of the way. Thank you so much for listening, my dear friends. Make sure that you share this broadcast with your friends. Just simply send them a text with the link to this episode, whether you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, or any of the other platforms. Thank you for sharing this episode with your friends. Make sure that you give me a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this episode. And make sure you go to my YouTube channel where I have my daily prayers as well as job and personality training that I do every day to help you understand your calling in life, your career path, in spite of fear, anxiety, and all the other issues that get in the way, but walking in power towards the future that God has for your life. Thank you again for being here, and I will see you next time.